So we'll bring out our first finalist. His name is Matt Kelpoise. His company is Cellular Preservation, and he's based right here in Buffalo, New York. Matt, welcome. You nervous?
Yes, sir.
It's going to be worse tonight. There'll be 3,000 people here, so good luck.
Thank you, Bill. Good morning and welcome to Buffalo. My name is Matt Kelpoise, and I'm here to tell you about Cellular Preservation Technologies. CPT is a Buffalo-based medical device company whose first product extends the shelf life of human platelets from 4 to 14 days. By doing so, we have a profound impact on the lives of patients who desperately rely on the steady supply of platelets, specifically patients with cancer. An extended shelf life is important because the majority of platelets are used for therapeutic infusions, and the short shelf life leads to 10 to 15% of platelet units being discarded each year at a cost in excess of $500 million. And it's this wastage that creates a situation where platelets are constantly in short supply, jeopardizing lives. We use xenon gas and cold storage to attain that shelf life of 14 days, which will help us to eliminate shortages and save lives. Additionally, we eliminate the need for secondary bacterial testing, which will make the platelet supply safer. So why should you award us this year's 43North title? One, we have a proven product, validated through extensive research with collaborators at leading academic institutions. We have a strong portfolio of intellectual property that protects our product as well as the underlying technology. We've spoken extensively with our target market and validated both the need for our product as well as a strong desire to adopt it into their everyday clinical practice. And we also know how to get this product to market in approximately 24 months. Beyond a good product or a plan, having a superior team to execute that plan is vital. Within our team, we've assembled a triad of necessary skill sets to successfully introduce products into a medical marketplace. Beginning with the revolutionary, visionary scientist, the father inventor of our technology, Ilya Ilyin, the clinical and regulatory expertise that Dr. Suresh possesses, having guided multiple device approvals through the course of his career. And once you have those approvals, you need commercial expertise. I've spent 30 years successfully launching products into multiple medical markets. We are fortunate to have very strong corporate partners, starting with Rich Products, who has spent significant resources developing this technology and the intellectual property. They continue to provide us with valuable administrative support. Praxair, a multinational company that has a significant presence here in Western New York. They have provided us with an endless supply of support as we develop this first product and continue to work with us as we explore future applications. We also partner with Nottingham Spurk, a world-renowned design and engineering firm. So how would we spend our winnings? These 4 activities implemented over the next 12 months will serve as key milestones that will allow us to hit our target launch date in less than 3 years. And how will we make money once we get to the marketplace? Our model's a little variation on the well-known razor blade model. Adoption of our system requires platelet processors like the Red Cross to purchase incubator units necessary to store 10 million units of platelets each year. This initial purchase results in a rapid revenue ramp and an infusion of cash to build the company upon. Additionally, each of those 10 million units requires our proprietary barrier film bag. This is the disposable component that drives highly predictable recurring revenues that run on year to year as an annuity. So in summary, we have a great team introducing a revolutionary product that saves lives into a very lucrative market that both needs and wants our product. Our technology has multiple applications beyond this initial iteration. And most importantly, we're proud to say that we're from Buffalo, and we're going to foster economic growth through organic job creation within the organization, as well as with collaborations with local manufacturers and the local Red Cross and Roosevelt Park Cancer Institute. So to sum it up, we're about creating jobs here in Buffalo, New York, and saving lives around the world. Thank you, and we welcome your questions.
Great job, man. Okay, before we get to the questions, do you have a couple of your partners that want to come out?
We do.
Wonderful.
My partners, Ilya Ilyin and Laxman Suresh.
Okay, who wants to kick us off? Questions? Johnny.
Thank you for the presentation. I had a couple of regulatory questions, actually. In your presentation, you talked about the approval time in the U.S. being, 60 months versus 2 years in Europe. That seems really long and drawn out. Is there no predicates that allow you to do it, or is it just the xenon piece of the puzzle?
Well, we think that the U.S. regulatory process will be shorter, and the reason we're going, it's a common practice among medical device companies to take advantage of the decentralized regulatory process in Europe and cherry pick your notifying authority. In this case, we're going to go to the MHRA in the UK, and in 20 days, in a preliminary filing avenue that they have, we can get a 20-day turnaround on how they will classify the device and map out a very clear development path for us. So that's our first market. We don't really anticipate that it'll take 60 months. We think that probably within 18 to 24 months post approval in Europe that we'd be in the U.S. market.
And then along those lines, so having taken a couple of products to Europe as well, so you've chosen a British, soon-to-be Brexit, exiting EU regulatory body. Is there any impact on going to the rest of Europe with Brexit, with you choosing a regulatory body out of Britain?
I'll let Suresh handle that, but I will make the initial statement that how that will all hash out is unknown, and if the timing of Brexit negatively impacts that strategy, that we'll work with our European regulatory consultants to adapt to that situation.
Good answer.
Saying that each country in Europe, with regards to this, acts as a what do you call, separate country, if you will. So it'll be independent regulatory authorities. So that's why we, irrespective of Brexit or whatever, we chose to go with UK, and next after that will be Germany. So those are the two bigger markets, if you will.
You guys are very serious. Next question.
May I ask
Teresa,
a follow-on to that? In terms of your revenue, I believe your business plan is showing 7 or 8 million in year one, but you're talking about regulatory approval in Europe first and then in the U.S. second, but 24 months to, as we just talked about. How are you going to reach that $8 million target? Obviously, you'll have to begin in Europe. Who is going to be your customer, and how are you going to get there over the next year?
Sure. We operate in a unique market in that Rome was not built in a day, but we like to say we're going to build it in 30 days. And that, unlike many other technologies where you have to slug it out hospital to hospital to hospital, the major adopter of our technology are the blood processors themselves, because they will process and store and then ship. So they're the ones that have the majority. There are unique situations, like you can talk about the Mayo Clinic and stuff, places like that in the U.S. that will have their own storage units as well. But, and the question becomes, do you have a ramped kind of revenue curve, or do you have a more total adoption? And I would argue that if, for instance, in the United States, if you were going to supply and roll it out in a phased fashion and you chose the Northeast, that within a couple weeks, people in the Northwest or Midwest would say, well, gee, why are you shipping platelets with 14 days worth of shelf life to the northeast, and we're still getting the O platelets, so that you'd get rapid adoption. And that's where I think that initial purchase in Europe, it represents, I think, a $23 million initial purchase.
So who would be your first customer?
Good follow-up. Yeah.
European, we will partner in Europe with a company that's very familiar with the markets, and we will, the first customer is the actual processors of platelets, much like the Red Cross and its equivalent in Europe.
Please, Darren.
Yep.
Sorry.
Could you talk about your market size in the U.S. and then reasonably what is your serviceable, obtainable market in the U.S.?
So with the market in the U.S., we are talking about two major groups of the customers. And we are talking about American Red Cross and hospitals which are heavily involved in the treatment of for the cancer patients. So examples of the blood banks, as you know, the blood systems on the West Coast and American Red Cross on the East Coast. And in terms of the leading hospitals, we are talking about Mayo Clinic, Dana-Farber, who has their own collection facilities, and their majority of services is around treating of the cancer patients. So annually in the U.S., 3 million platelet units transfused and 10 million units transfused worldwide. So when we are talking about 3 million units of platelets in the U.S., overwhelming majority of that is apheresis collected units, which cost about $550 on average. Some more, some less. So we are talking about what would be the market size. It's
3 million times $550.
Yeah, $3 million. Yeah. Something like that. In that regard, when we are talking about our revenue model, we are talking about some pricing for the product that we possess. And here we are talking about 10% of those $500 per unit. So it's basically up to $50 per unit of platelets transfused in the U.S., multiplied by 3 million units, we're getting what?
Yeah, I think it's important to understand, too, in the U.S. market, having spoken with the head of distribution for the Red Cross, their pain point is really not, they don't, in their eyes, platelet shortages are not an issue because they sell every platelet they can get their hands on. So in our discussions with both end users told us that they felt it would be revolutionary if we could give them 10 days of storage and would pay a minimum of a 10% premium over the current cost. Now you flip it to the Red Cross, their mindset is that if you can increase my revenues on a per unit basis, then we're all in for adopting this. And so that would be the situation because we know that the market is willing to increase a premium. Also, the Red Cross has done a study showing that they would save millions of dollars in efficiencies utilizing our system. Because when you think about the short shelf life, they have to go to extraordinary measures, bring people in on weekends to process platelets, et cetera, to be able to keep the current supply going.
So we can say that we ran this model with American Red Cross, and they calculated. So in terms of this weekend collections and be able to store platelets more than 10 days, they can realize $20 million in annual savings.
Next question, Martin.
My question has to do with the end user adoption. I think I read in your materials that you have to allow for 3 hours for the xenon to diffuse from the bags before it can be used. What kind of feedback have you received from the end users and how that fits into their process, their procedures, and is this an issue for them or not?
It is an issue, and it's something that in terms of adoption, for us, it will be about educating the end user on that and how to manage that issue and make it and establish their daily routine. And perhaps it involves taking their expected platelet usage for the day out in the morning to prepare for the patients coming in for scheduled infusions. So it's a requirement of the product that honestly it's an issue, but I don't think it has any, in speaking with our folks, they understand that, the end users, and it's not a deterrent for them adopting. And similarly, with apheresis platelets, everyone gets apheresis platelets because Red Cross dictates that. So it's going to be a situation where Red Cross adopts, every platelet unit they get is in our barrier film bag, so they're going to have to.
All right, we're coming into 1 minute left. Maybe time for one more question. Joanne?
Are there any regulatory or safety issues around releasing the gas inside hospitals?
That's a very good point, because in this technology versus there are other approaches when you're trying to add some chemicals into the blood product, we have this gas that can be considered as a processing agent, and it gets in and gets out. So initially, as you know the story, we looked at this technology for the food applications, and in that regard we were targeting something that would be considered safe, organic, etc. So when it's migrated to the biomedical field, we ensure and we perform these studies to show that there is no residual gas left in the unit before we transfuse it to the patient.
Yeah, I got that part. My question was, what about releasing it into the ambient atmosphere?
Xenon is
10
an inert,
seconds.
Xenon is an inert gas. It's harmless. It's approved in Europe as an anesthetic gas. So people in Europe are inhaling this every single day.
So
So
we're going to have to end it there. Matt, team, great job. Judges, great questions. Thank you so much.